on a Tuesday. Nobody really says that anymore. Welcome into First Take. Molly Karam here in Bristol. Max and Stephen A. on the road. Fellas, good morning.
What's up? How y'all doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, guys, let's get into it. The theme of the Celtics season has been man down, with the latest injury being Jaylen Brown. But last night it looked more like man up. Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Terry Rozier all had at least 25 points, carrying the C's to victory at home, taking a 1-0 lead over a fully loaded Philly team. So, Max, what's the biggest reason for Philly's loss?
The biggest reason, and there were several, but the biggest one, they just hadn't played in a while. That's it. They were out of rhythm. It's a rhythm game. All sports, you need to be in sync, and they were not. And you could see, you could see the defensive effort wasn't exactly there. They lacked certain energy. Okay, I get it and all that. And you give credit to the Celtics, but you could see before, like, as the shot went up, you could see it wasn't good, and you could see it even almost before it left the player's hand. Even when they had some wide open looks, actually, even when they weren't contested, they just did the way whoever it was who was shooting it got the ball, the kind of rhythm they were in. You could see the shots weren't going to go down. Just the way it is. They had a little too much time off, and if that sounds a little precious, like, hey, there's some schedule losses, usually during the regular season, second of back-to-back on the road, the third of 4 nights, stuff like that. There can also be schedule losses also in the playoffs with too much time off for a team that just gets rusty sitting around while the other team is competitive and going and in sync. I do not expect a repeat performance like that from the Sixers because now they've played and they'll have shaken some rust off.
Well, to me, everything that you say may be valid points, but it doesn't make it any less acceptable. It was an unacceptable performance. Let's give the Boston Celtics credit where credit is due. This is a team that ranks 3rd defensively in the entire NBA and number 1 in defending the three-point shot. What did they do? They basically held the Sixers to 5 for 26 shooting from three-point range. They turned them into 2-point scorers because they kept chasing them off the three-point line. Covington, Saric, and Ilyasova combined for 0 of 10 shooting from three-point range. They did nothing from three-point range last night. And if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, your success was predicated on the three-point shooting ability that you displayed against Miami, where you hit about 57 three-pointers in that series. Suddenly, you could barely buy one last night. That was problem number 1. Problem number 2 was effort, and it could have been because of rust or whatever, but they just did not look like themselves. And it wasn't just because they were missing shots. It was because they looked like a team forced to do things that they didn't want to do. Sometimes that happens, but here's where it becomes incredibly alarming. That has nothing to do with what you're able to do on the defensive side of the ball. If you see that you don't have it offensively, if you see that the Boston Celtics are making you do the kind of things that you're not accustomed to doing or that you don't want to do, you can make amends for that by returning the favor, reciprocating and forcing them to do what you didn't want them to do. There's no Kyrie Irving. There's no Gordon Hayward. And on top of it all, Jaylen Brown couldn't even play last night, knowing that they were handicapped. For you to go out there and stink up the joint defensively, where Terry Rozier looks like the second coming of Kyrie, where Al Horford, like I told you yesterday, is making shots from all over the place, which is a problem for Philadelphia. They're going to have to figure that out. Of course, and Jason Tatum, looking like a rookie of the year, dude. This brother looked absolutely sensational last night. It is an inexcusable performance by the Philadelphia 76ers because no matter how rusty you were, that explains your offense. It doesn't explain the indifference or the lack of effort, whatever the case, whatever word you want to use, that they displayed defensively. It was an inexcusable performance.
Well, you went to several reasons. The question was the biggest. I said the biggest was rust. But if you want to go to others, the other biggest reason is Danny Ainge and that team he put together in Boston. The depth of that team, the coach that he's installed, Brad Stevens, maybe the best coach in basketball right now. The fact that with 3 of your best 4 players not there, they still perform that way. I mentioned Al Horford yesterday as the key player, obviously at this point, for the Celtics, both ends of the floor. He certainly played that way. Rozier was excellent, and even Tatum. It's interesting because here you have the Sixers and the Celtics, and Tatum was basically traded for Markelle Fultz, the one pick for the 3, and Danny Ainge picked up another first rounder. And what happens? The number 1 pick in the draft doesn't get in the game for the Sixers, and Jason Tatum, the number 3 pick in the draft, drops 28 points at a home win game 1 in the second round of the playoffs. Plus Ainge is going to get another first rounder next year. So, look, when it comes to brain power in the East, as I've mentioned, it's Ainge and Ujiri, and Colangelo's actually done a good job with what Hinkie handed him. But in terms of, like, organization, it's a little bit of a mismatch. Maybe the Celtics against anyone, Stephen A., because even the Raptors are not able to attract the kind of talent that the Celtics are able to attract. And so, number 1, I'd say it's the Sixers' rust. Number 2, it's an excellently designed and coached Celtics team.
Well, Rissa, you don't get to sit up there and make that point this morning. You picked the Sixers to win this series just like I did. Everything that you just stated, we knew coming into game 1. But you still picked the Sixers. So the bottom line is this. We know all of that about the Boston Celtics. We know all of that about Danny Ainge. We know all of that about the future. But at the end of the day, knowing the personnel that they were having available to them last night, knowing that Jaylen Brown wasn't going to be on the court, there is no excuse for the Sixers. I don't give a damn what Danny Ainge has done. We knew that before this series. We knew that before these playoffs. We knew that coming into the season, the job that Danny Ainge had done with this Boston Celtics team. We didn't know that?
It's one thing to know that he has an excellent system in place with the coach and players, etc. It's another thing to see a guy like Rozier, who we all know is good, but to do what he did last night. Is that partly the Sixers' lackadaisical effort on defense sometimes? Absolutely. Yeah, but what? Rozier, right. But he continuing to do this time against a better coached team and a better team than the Bucks. And the point is, when you can continually just plug and play, Marcus Smart was excellent. We know they're good, yes, Stephen A., but did we know that they were this good and this well coached? This is yet another piece of evidence. And it exploited the fact that the Sixers were rusty.